Silence is a teacher, but questions reveal truth. This is something elders understood long before we learned to read the expressions on people's faces. They always said life speaks in whispers before it ever raises its voice. And often, the quietest moments carry the loudest lessons. Think about how someone can walk back into your life wearing the brightest smile, a smile polished like glass, shining as if it were carved from happiness itself. Yet you look at it, not with suspicion, but with the steady wisdom of someone who has lived enough to know that not all brightness is warmth. Some smiles are shields, some are curtains, some are carefully stitched masks meant to distract you from the noise behind them. And that is where silence becomes a teacher. Silence teaches you how to observe without interrupting. It allows you to see the tremble in a sentence that appeared strong, the hesitation in an explanation that should have flowed easily, the way someone's eyes dart. Not because they are shy, but because they are searching for a place to hide their truth. Silence is where you learn to read the things that are not said, the pauses that carry more weight than the words around them. You feel the tension in how someone breathes, how they avoid certain details, how they wrap convenience around their stories like wrapping paper meant to conceal something fragile inside. In silence, you learn patience. You learn to let people unfold on their own, because truth is like fabric. It unravels when pulled too forcefully, but it loosens effortlessly when touched with calm intention. But silence alone is not enough. Silence is the classroom, yes, but the question is the exam. The question is what determines whether the truth will continue hiding in the shadows or step into the light. One thoughtful question, asked in the right tone and at the right moment, can be sharper than any confrontation. That is something elders always reminded us. You do not need anger to reveal dishonesty, only clarity. A well-placed question does not accuse, it invites the truth to reveal itself. It creates a small, quiet opening where someone's story must match their reality. And when it doesn't, that is when the truth begins to tremble. You see, people can return to you with rehearsed lines, stories they practiced long before they stepped back into your presence. They know how to sound believable. They know which details to include, which emotions to mimic, which smiles to wear. But the moment you ask the right question, the story they memorized begins to crack. Because a lie can fill a silence, but it cannot survive a question. A lie can float peacefully in a quiet room, but the moment a question touches it, the surface breaks. Suddenly, the person who seemed confident becomes jittery. The person who spoke smoothly begins searching for words. The one who smiled too brightly loses the shine. This is not magic, child. It is psychology. It is the natural nature of truth. Truth sits between words, not inside them. It hides in what people avoid saying, in the details they rush through, in the parts of the story they repeat unnecessarily, like someone trying to convince themselves. Silence gives you the chance to observe all this. It gives you time to watch the performance unfold, but it is the question that stops the performance entirely. When asked calmly, gently, without accusation, it forces a person to stand still. And stillness is where truth panics. Stillness is where guilt sweats. Stillness is where the truth reveals itself in the tightening jaw, the sudden dryness of the mouth, the shift of eyes from warm to nervous, the fingers tapping without rhythm. One question. This is the power people underestimate. People often think confrontation means raising your voice, demanding explanations, or uncovering evidence like a detective. But elders knew a different way. They knew the quiet power of a single question that cuts through pretenses. They knew how a thoughtful question makes someone look inward, not outward. They knew that when you speak with calm clarity, the truth loses all its hiding places. Because the question does not accuse, it simply asks. And when someone's reality cannot support the answer they want to give, the truth collapses under its own weight. You must understand, when a person returns wearing a smile that feels borrowed, silence lets you study the mask, and the question peels it off. Silence teaches you to see. Questions teach you to understand what you saw. This is the balance elders lived by. When you remain quiet long enough, your intuition sharpens. You begin to sense when a story is too smooth, when emotions feel out of place, when timing seems too convenient. It is not paranoia, it is wisdom. It is the kind of wisdom life forces upon those who have loved deeply and been disappointed gently. And maybe that is what hurts the most. Not the lie, but how much effort someone puts into making it believable. Yet even that becomes a lesson. Silence teaches you that you cannot stop others from hiding the truth. Questions teach you that you do not have to accept it. Silence gives you space to breathe, to think, to watch. Questions give you permission to seek clarity, to protect your peace, to set boundaries, and both together give you something even more precious: dignity. When you respond with calm observation, not chaos, you preserve your own strength. You refuse to lower yourself into the emotional mess someone else created. You stand firm, rooted in self-respect, while the truth reveals itself through their unraveling. And remember, child, people who are honest do not fear questions. They welcome them. They answer simply, directly, without needing to rehearse. But people carrying secrets, they treat questions like alarm bells. They rush to defend, over-explain, change the subject, or wrap their answers in unnecessary details. This is what silence reveals: who is grounded and who is hiding. This is what questions reveal: who is truthful and who is simply performing. Sometimes it takes only one question to expose an entire story someone tried to bury. One question to turn their smile into a frown, their confidence into confusion, their calm into panic. It does not need to be sharp, harsh, or loud. The most powerful questions are the quiet ones, questions that come from clarity, not suspicion, questions that show you were paying attention, questions that reveal you are no longer willing to be treated like someone who cannot see what is right in front of you. Let me tell you another truth. Your calmness is more intimidating than any anger could ever be, because calmness means you already know something. Calmness means you are not afraid of the truth, whether it hurts or heals. When you ask a question in calmness, it sends a message: I see more than you think. And that message alone is enough to make the truth stumble out of hiding. People often return expecting everything to remain the same. They expect you to accept their words without question, to forgive without explanation, to ignore the inconsistencies they hope you haven't noticed. But silence teaches you to stop rewarding dishonesty. Questions teach you to invite honesty. Together, they turn you into someone who cannot be misled easily, someone who listens deeply and thinks even deeper, someone who expects truth not as a luxury, but as a basic requirement of love and respect. Sometimes the truth sits quietly in the pauses of someone's story, waiting for you to ask the one question that gives it permission to walk into the room. And when it does, whether soft or painful, it frees you. It frees you from confusion, from doubt, from emotional fog. It frees you from wondering why something felt off, why someone seemed distant, why the smile they wore did not reach the sincerity of their heart. One question can pull the thread that unravels everything hidden. You become stronger not by shouting for the truth, but by being still enough to recognize it and brave enough to ask for it. Silence shapes your intuition. Questions sharpen your courage, and together they pave a path toward clarity, a path where you learn to trust yourself, your observations, your instincts, a path where you no longer let someone else's confusion define your sense of worth or peace. Remember this lesson, child. Silence is not weakness. It is awareness. It is observation. It is wisdom gathering its strength. And questions are not accusations. They are the lanterns that illuminate what someone hoped would remain dark. You do not need force or anger to bring truth to the surface. You only need to pay attention and then ask. Truth sits quietly, waiting for the moment when someone wise enough touches the silence with a single question. And when that moment comes, masks fall, stories crumble, and clarity arrives. And in that clarity, you reclaim your peace, your dignity, and your power. Comfort can hide carelessness, child, and that is one of life's most painful yet important lessons. People do not always understand the weight of their choices, especially when those choices bring them pleasure, ease, or a momentary sense of freedom. What feels like a harmless indulgence to one person can feel like abandonment to the one waiting at home. That is the truth elders tried to teach through stories, truth wrapped in simple words, but heavy with wisdom, because comfort, when not balanced with responsibility, can turn into a soft, warm blindness, and that blindness can make someone forget how deeply their absence is felt. You see, people rarely believe their comfort can hurt someone when they slip into luxury, when they take a quiet escape, when they seek refreshment away from home. They tell themselves it is a break, a reward, a harmless pause from everyday life. They tell themselves they deserve it, that it doesn't mean anything, that no one will be affected. But the heart waiting at home does not count days by luxury. It counts them by presence. It counts them by consistency, by effort, by the everyday gestures that show, I am here. When that presence disappears without explanation, without care, without honesty, the person left behind feels it like a silent storm. Comfort becomes dangerous not because it is wrong to rest, but because it often blinds someone to the responsibility they carry within a relationship, a family, a home. Luxury has a way of creating distance, not physical distance, but emotional distance. When someone steps into a world where everything is smooth and easy, they sometimes forget the hands that made their original world stable. They forget the quiet person who kept things running, who tended to the details, who held the emotional balance of the home. They forget how much their absence weighs. And here is the truth that stings. The person who enjoys that escape rarely intends to hurt anyone. Carelessness is not always cruelty. It is often immaturity. It is a lack of emotional perspective. It is the inability to see beyond personal comfort and recognize the emotional ripple effect of one's behavior. Elders used to say, when someone is comfortable, they do not hear the echo of the footsteps they leave behind. That means comfort sometimes mutes awareness. And when awareness is muted, responsibility is forgotten. Think of it like a pond. When someone throws a small stone into it, they see the splash but not the ripples. But the ripples continue long after the stone sinks. Choices are like that. Someone may enjoy their moment, an escape, a luxury trip, a quiet recklessness, thinking it is a small stone. But the ripples reach the shore where someone else stands. The person at home feels those ripples, even if the one who threw the stone never looks back to see them spreading. That is the emotional responsibility most people never learned. They think responsibility is about providing, showing up occasionally, or saying the right words. They forget that emotional responsibility is a deeper form of accountability. It means recognizing that your choices do not belong only to you when you are connected to someone. Your actions carry emotional weight. They shape the atmosphere in your home. They influence the trust someone has in you. Whether you intend it or not, your decisions ripple outward. And sometimes, those ripples become waves. A luxury escape might feel peaceful for the one taking it. But for the one left behind, it may feel like being erased. While one person rests, the other is left with questions. While one enjoys softness, the other sits in a silence that grows heavy. While one is carried by ease, the other holds the weight of uncertainty. This imbalance does not happen loudly. It happens quietly, slowly, like a shadow stretching across a room unnoticed until the light is gone. When someone indulges in comfort without considering its impact, they mistake rest for freedom. They forget that freedom inside a partnership is not the freedom to disappear. It is the freedom to be supported, understood, and cared for. But that requires reciprocity. If one person keeps taking comfort while the other carries the emotional load, the relationship becomes lopsided. One side softens, the other hardens. One side floats, the other sinks. And the hardest part is realizing this imbalance without bitterness, without letting the hurt turn into anger. That requires emotional maturity. It requires the wisdom to see that their carelessness may not have come from malice, but from a lack of awareness. But even understanding this does not erase the impact. It only explains it. Comfort hides carelessness, because comfort is seductive. It whispers, "You deserve this. Don't think too much, just enjoy." It convinces a person that a moment of pleasure is a harmless act of self-care. But the heart left at home does not measure impact by intention. It measures it by absence. And absence, when unexplained or repeated, becomes emotional neglect. But here is the deeper lesson. Emotional responsibility is not just about avoiding harm. It is about actively choosing awareness. It is about asking yourself, how will my actions affect the person who loves me? It is about recognizing that your choices create emotional weather. You can bring sunshine or storms, warmth or cold, clarity or confusion. And the person who loves you feels those changes even when you do not. The elders always said, if you seek comfort outside, make sure you do not create discomfort inside. This is the heart of emotional responsibility. It teaches us to balance our needs with the needs of those who depend on us emotionally. It teaches us to enjoy rest without abandoning connection. It teaches us to pursue ease without becoming careless. It teaches us to recognize that love is sustained by presence, attention, and consistency, not grand gestures, not occasional apologies, not material offerings. Understanding this helps you see people clearly. It helps you understand why someone's comfortable escape can feel like betrayal to you. It helps you separate intention from impact. It helps you hold on to your self-worth instead of blaming yourself for someone else's lack of awareness. It helps you realize that emotional responsibility is a skill. Not everyone has learned it, and not everyone cares to learn it. But you, child, you learn it now. You learn that when someone chooses comfort over communication, you are not imagining the hurt. When someone slips into luxury without considering your feelings, you are not overreacting. When someone's ease becomes your emotional burden, that imbalance deserves acknowledgement. Because love without responsibility becomes selfish, and comfort without awareness becomes cruelty disguised as rest. And the hardest part? The one enjoying comfort may never notice the storm they caused. They might walk back in with a relaxed smile, a light heart, and a refreshed mind, not realizing they left you carrying the emotional weight of their absence. This is why recognition matters. This is why wisdom matters. This is why we must learn not to minimize what we feel just because someone else didn't mean to hurt us. Emotional responsibility is the bridge between intention and impact. It is the practice of remembering that our comfort should never come at the price of someone else's peace. And once you understand that, child, you grow stronger. You stop accepting carelessness disguised as innocence. You stop letting someone's ease erase your worth. You start demanding, not loudly but firmly, that your emotions be considered too. Because every relationship requires balance, every bond requires awareness, and every heart deserves a partner who understands that comfort is not an excuse to forget the one who waited at home. Comfort hides carelessness, but only until awareness arrives. And once you see the truth, you do not unsee it. You learn, you grow, and you choose differently, for yourself and for your peace. Dignity speaks louder than accusations. This is a truth the elders held close, a truth they passed down through stories, through quiet warnings, through examples lived rather than preached. They always taught that strength is not measured by how loudly you can raise your voice, but by how steadily you can hold yourself when someone else tries to shake your peace. Anyone can shout, anyone can accuse, anyone can let anger do the speaking. But dignity, that is a strength of its own. It is the strength that remains when frustration fades. It is the strength that reveals a person's character long before their words do. You see, child, life will always give you moments where someone's actions or choices tempt you to explode, when someone hides the truth, disrespects your heart, or plays with your trust. The natural response is to react, to demand answers, to return heat with heat. But elders learned through long years that anger clouds the truth, while dignity exposes it. When your voice is steady, when your heart is calm, when your questions are deliberate, the truth has nowhere to hide. The person standing before you cannot blame your tone, cannot shift the focus to your anger, cannot pretend they are the victim of your reaction. Calmness becomes your shield. Precision becomes your power. dignity becomes your voice. It's a strange thing, isn't it? How calm honesty can unsettle someone more deeply than accusation ever could. When someone expects you to shout and instead you stand firm, composed, clear-eyed, your silence and calmness become the mirror they did not want to look into. They feel exposed not by your words, but by the way you refuse to lose yourself. They feel the weight of your dignity pressing against their excuses. They realize that you are not trying to win an argument. You are simply revealing a truth they can no longer decorate. A calm question is something a guilty heart fears. It lands gently but strikes deeply. It does not shake the room, but it shakes the person. Elders used to say, a steady voice frightens those who built their peace on lies, because shouting gives them something to point at. Anger gives them a distraction. Accusations give them a chance to defend themselves from your tone instead of your truth. But calmness? That gives them nothing to hide behind. Your dignity stands like a lamp, shining its quiet light over the situation. This is why the elders taught us not to become harsh even when we feel hurt. They understood that harshness burns your own hands first. Anger drains you. Accusations weaken your position. But calmness returns your power to you. Calmness preserves your self-respect. Calmness shows the other person that your peace is not theirs to shake. And the beauty of dignity is that it teaches you something essential. Not everyone deserves your rage, but everyone will reveal themselves in front of your calmness. When you speak with composure, you watch how the truth shows itself. Some people crumble, some people stutter, some people try to fill the silence with explanations that only expose them more, and some, those who are honest, will meet your calmness with clarity. Their reactions become your answers long before they say anything important. A steady voice is like a quiet test, one that cannot be cheated. It is easy to lie when someone is shouting because chaos gives cover, but when the room is still, when your expression is steady, when your question is simple, the truth becomes heavy. A guilty heart cannot breathe easily in such air, and this is what elders meant when they said that dignity protects your worth. When you carry yourself with dignity, you refuse to let someone else's behavior drag you into a place where you betray your own integrity. You refuse to let their actions turn you into someone you are not. You refuse to use your energy to chase, argue, or beg. You speak with purpose. You listen with clarity. You stand with grace. And in doing so, you protect something sacred, your self-respect. People often misunderstand dignity, thinking it means being passive or silent. But dignity is not silence. It is deliberate restraint. It is the choice to respond rather than react. It is the strength to hold your ground without trembling. It is the discipline to ask the right question without losing your composure. It is the wisdom to know that the truth is more easily seen in calmness than in chaos. When someone behaves carelessly or deceitfully, your calmness does not excuse them. It exposes them. They may try to hide behind your anger if you choose to lose control, but when you remain composed, their true character stands alone, naked and unprotected. Calm honesty is like shining a gentle light into a dark room. It does not break down the walls. It simply reveals what is inside, and in that revelation you learn more about them than any accusation could ever teach you. Elders always said, dignity is the voice of someone who knows their worth. When you know your worth, you do not raise your voice to be heard. You do not shout to be understood. You do not demand truth with aggression. You let the truth reveal itself through the way the other person responds to your steadiness. When you speak calmly, you show that you are not afraid of the answer, and that confidence unsettles anyone who has something to hide. They expect you to fall apart, to cry, to lose yourself in emotion. But when you don't, when you remain centered, the balance shifts. You regain control not by force, but by presence. And here is another truth, child. Dignity is remembered. Long after the conversation ends, long after emotions settle, long after the truth has surfaced, people remember how you carried yourself. They remember that you did not break. They remember that you stayed rooted. They remember that you handled the moment with grace, even when you were hurt. And that memory becomes your power. Because dignity builds reputation. Accusations are forgotten, but dignity is not. You do not lose anything by staying calm. You gain clarity, you gain truth, you gain strength, you gain the ability to walk away if needed, without regret, without shame, without the heaviness that comes from losing your self-control. And that is why elders taught us to stay strong without becoming harsh. Harshness hurts you more than it hurts the other person. It drains your energy, clouds your judgment, and moves you away from the truth. But strength wrapped in dignity, that is unshakable. It creates an environment where truth cannot hide and lies cannot thrive. Dignity is not just how you speak, it is how you carry your pain. It is how you refuse to let someone else define your reaction. It is how you hold on to your worth even when someone else fails to see it. It is how you look someone in the eyes and ask a simple question without fear. And most importantly, it is how you choose yourself in every moment where someone else tries to diminish you. People who are honest respect dignity. People who are guilty fear it. And people who are careless are exposed by it. So remember, child, your calmness is not a weakness. Your steadiness is not silence. Your soft tone is not surrender. Every time you choose dignity over accusation, you protect your soul, you protect your worth, you protect your peace, and you give truth the space to speak for itself. Dignity is your strength, and it will always speak louder than accusations ever could. Healing begins when you stop accepting confusion as love. Those are words wrapped in the deepest kind of grandmother's wisdom, the kind spoken quietly while stirring tea. The kind that feels like a soft hand placed on yours after a lifetime of watching people learn the hard way. Confusion, child, is not love. It never has been. It is simply the fog someone else creates when they do not know how to love clearly, or when they want to enjoy your warmth without offering their own. And yet, many hearts, especially tender ones, mistake that fog for depth. They mistake inconsistency for passion. They mistake emotional chaos for intensity. But elders knew better, because they had seen how confusion drains the soul drip by drip, while love nourishes it drop by drop. You must understand something essential. Confusion is a sign, a warning, a quiet alarm that too many ignore because they want to see the best in someone. But love, real love, does not twist your thoughts. It does not make you question your worth. It does not leave you wondering where you stand, day after day, like a child waiting in the cold for someone who promised they would come. Love does not require you to decode, decipher, or endure. Love is steady. Love is clear. Love brings warmth, not weather. Yet confusion can disguise itself beautifully. It wears masks, grand gestures, soft words, occasional affection, moments of tenderness that arrive just in time to keep you from walking away. It creates loops that keep people attached, always hoping the next moment will bring clarity, the next day will bring answers, the next conversation will finally reveal the truth. And because the heart is patient, especially when it loves, it stays, it waits, it explains, it forgives. All while confusion grows like ivy around the foundation of the relationship, tightening its grip slowly, quietly, until you begin to shrink to fit the spaces someone else leaves for you. This is where healing truly begins, when you finally recognize that confusion is not a sign to try harder, but a sign to step back. When you realize that love that confuses you is not love that sustains you, when the truth finally reveals itself, not through shouting, not through confrontation, but through clarity, patterns, and quiet awareness, you must choose yourself. This is not selfishness, this is survival. This is honoring the dignity you were taught to protect since childhood. This is listening to the elders who said, "When the water is muddy, stop drinking from it because muddy water does not quench thirst, it makes you sick." Think about that, child. When water is muddy, you do not blame yourself for being thirsty. You do not keep swallowing the dirt, hoping it will become clean in your mouth. You do not stay beside the murky stream, praying it will clear itself. You move, you walk, you search for a source that nourishes instead of poisons. The same applies to love. You do not heal by staying in places that confuse you. You heal by stepping toward clarity. But the truth is, accepting that is not easy. Confusion has a way of making you question yourself. You begin to wonder if you are too sensitive, too emotional, too demanding. You begin to think perhaps you misunderstood, perhaps you expected too much. Perhaps you should wait a little longer, be a little more patient, give a little more grace. And yet, confusion keeps taking while giving nothing lasting back. It leaves you exhausted, mentally tangled, emotionally bruised. It drains the spark from your eyes. It weakens your trust in your own intuition. And the longer you stay in it, the harder it becomes to distinguish between what your heart wants and what your heart needs. Healing begins when you start listening to yourself again. When you stop silencing the small voice inside you that keeps whispering, "Something is not right." When you stop overriding your instincts just to protect someone else's image, when you stop choosing someone's potential over their reality, healing begins when you stop calling excuses love, when you stop labeling emotional inconsistency as passion, when you stop letting someone else's uncertainty become your emotional home. Healing also begins when you realize that truth does not destroy love. Lies and confusion do. When the truth finally shows itself, it may hurt, it may sting, it may feel like betrayal or disappointment, but it also frees you. Truth is clarity. Truth is direction. Truth is the first step toward reclaiming your peace. And peace, my child, is priceless. Peace is what lets you breathe fully. Peace is what lets you sleep deeply. Peace is what allows your heart to open again. But this time to something healthier. Punishment has nothing to do with healing. You do not heal by wishing someone pain or hoping they regret what they did. Healing is not revenge, it is release. It is choosing to unclench the grip confusion had around your spirit. It is deciding that your inner world deserves harmony, not chaos. It is recognizing that your worth does not decrease because someone else was careless with it. Healing is stepping out of the fog and into clarity with your head held high. Elders often shared stories where someone spent years drinking from muddy water, dehydrated yet determined, because they convinced themselves that no other water existed. But the moment they finally let go of the mud, their hands were free to reach for clean water. This is the essence of healing, letting go so you can receive better. Sometimes the truth reveals itself in a moment. One sentence, one action, one reaction that unravels everything you tried to hold together. Other times, it reveals itself slowly, through patterns, through pauses, through inconsistencies that no longer blend into the background. But once truth appears, everything else becomes clearer, and clarity requires a choice, to stay in confusion or to walk toward peace. Choosing yourself does not mean abandoning others. It means refusing to abandon yourself. It means trusting your intuition even when others dismiss it. It means valuing your emotional safety more than someone else's comfort. It means recognizing that staying in confusion is a slow form of self-neglect. Healing asks you to rebuild parts of you that confusion wore down: your self-trust, your confidence, your boundaries, your voice. It asks you to redefine what love means to you, not based on chaos but on clarity. It asks you to recognize kindness, consistency, honesty as the foundations of real connection. Healing invites you to step into a version of yourself that no longer tolerates being emotionally blurred. And child, healing also requires forgiveness. Not necessarily of the other person, but of yourself. Forgive yourself for staying too long. Forgive yourself for believing the best in someone who did not show it. Forgive yourself for hoping, for trying, for holding on. Forgive yourself for being human. Healing begins the moment you stop blaming yourself for wanting love and start choosing the kind of love that does not hurt your soul. And when you finally walk away from muddy water, something beautiful happens. You begin to see what clear water looks like. You begin to feel what peace feels like. You begin to understand that love should never confuse you. It should clarify you. It should strengthen you. It should nourish you like clean water after a long drought. Healing does not rush. It unfolds, it softens, it teaches. But it always begins with the same moment, the moment you stop accepting confusion as love. The moment you say, "My peace matters." The moment you choose yourself. And when you do, child, the world becomes brighter. Your heart becomes lighter. And your spirit, oh, your spirit finally breathes, finally rests, finally heals.